Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of AWS Partners Unplugged, a podcast where we discuss all topics related to partners. Today, we're focusing on the incredible leaps forward in AWS Marketplace that we are fundamentally changing how customers discover, procure, and deploy solutions. I am thrilled to be joined by the Vice President of Marketplace and Partner Services, Matt Yanchyshyn. Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Igor. It's great to be here.
Matt, I know you've recently returned from traveling around the world, visiting customers and partners at some of AWS's first partner and customer summits. During these events, you've shared how AWS is investing in a strategy that is partner-centric as at its core. And AWS Market is at the heart of this transformation. Can you tell us what you're seeing in the marketplace and why it's becoming such a critical part of partner strategy?
Yeah, we're seeing a pretty fundamental shift in how software, but also data, professional services gets bought and sold. I think this is really behind why Marketplace has grown so tremendously. We announced our $1 billion total contract value transacted through Marketplace just a few years ago at reInvent. And now we're transacting tens of billions of dollars to the marketplace. So the growth is huge, but that's driven by customer demand. It's, you have this whole generation of people who are now in the C-suite, their CEOs, CTOs, or their head of procurement or the head of cloud who grew up in the App Store generation. They want like immediate access to apps and technology. And now they're, it seems like a leap to go from that to like enterprise procurement, but it's true. And that's driven also by AI and agents. Like people want to try and buy and configure and use software and the services that come with it and data a lot faster than they have in the past. So, now we have over 3 million subscriptions deployed globally. And interestingly, 99% of the top 1,000 AWS customers already have at least one active subscription in Marketplace as of the end of 2025. So really come a long way. And we've really evolved to a place where, anyone who really can list software and data and services on Marketplace and have, both massive deals, but also high volumes of smaller transactions happen really efficiently there. So a whole generation of partners have built really strong businesses in partnership with Marketplace.
3 million subscriptions. That's incredible. It's an incredible scale. What is really driving this? Is it just more partners are listed on Marketplace, or is it something deeper happening here?
There are a number of factors. I think initially Marketplace, when it first started, was self-service. Like you'd imagine an app store, where you go and you find you deploy, and that's still a really healthy, growing part of our business. But then, about a decade ago, we introduced support for things like private offers, like custom pricing, custom terms, and then support for SaaS, and then support for channel, like resell motions. Like that's a fancy way of saying enterprise buying motions, and that exploded. So that kind of really drove a growth. And what we've seen recently is a shift in the types of buyers showing up and the type of products listed on the marketplace. So I think what really got us to the 3 million and beyond subscriptions, first of all, that's self-service, then driven by SaaS, and more recently driven by new categories of products like business applications like Salesforce and Adobe products, and ServiceNow and Workday are amongst our fastest growing products on the marketplace. And then of course, AI and agents. The AI and agents tools marketplace launched just last July at the New York Summit. And that's driving a whole new wave, just like we saw with the wave of SaaS many years ago. What's now driving it is customers saying, instead of just like, what is AI or what is generative AI or what are agents, they're saying, hey, how do I deploy like a production ready solution that leverages agents to solve my specific industry use case? That's a lot different from give me a VPN from like 10 years ago. And that's driving like sort of a whole new wave of growth. And that's why we launched multi-product solutions. But end of the day, like that's what's driving catalog growth. We grew from 900 listings in that AI agents and tools category when we launched it to over 3,000 solutions as of April. So that's the fastest growing category in marketplace history. So yeah, AI and agents are driving the latest sort of growth trend. In the past, that was SaaS. And in the past before that, that was self-service, just like the cloud itself.
That's remarkable growth. What kind of agents do you see, or what kind of agentic solutions do you see are gaining the most traction?
Yeah, well, first of all, I encourage, listeners and Igor, you too, to just go see for yourself. You can actually open up the marketplace, and on the public marketplace site, you can actually see the top solutions that the customers are subscribing to on Marketplace, at least through public offers. That you can see the top ones listed right on the Marketplace page. So if you look at agents, for example, you'll see some ones you may expect, like the Brave MCP server. People are using it to do web queries and things like that as part of their agentic workloads, but also some ones you might not expect. Tavily and Brave for doing research, of course, but also like Upstage, that's an AI model. Those guys actually a startup out of Korea, and that's for intelligent document processing through agentic technologies. We're seeing business solutions like that. And then also a lot of MCP servers that complement sort of well-established ISVs, like Zscaler, for example, has an MCP server for their solution for zero trust security. And people buying increasingly sort of packages of solutions. So like zero trust, you don't just need Zscaler, you'll need like multiple components. So same with like a solution like Elastic. So a lot of sort of core infrastructure partners like Zscaler, like Elastic, like MongoDB, et cetera, selling their products and their agentic components alongside that. I mentioned business applications before. Increasingly, I was looking this morning, actually, the European stats, and industry solutions and industry buyers is one of our faster growing uh, categories as well, which is no surprise because business applications grew. So, and all of those have agent solutions. I mean, look like a Workday. Workday is busy transforming themselves into sort of an agentic solution for ERP. Salesforce is doing the same with Agentforce. I'd say across the board. But where we see the most traction is in security, is in customer service, like contact center, things like that, and core infrastructure, and some of those sort of adjacent agentic enablers, like I mentioned, the web searchers and the kind of research tools. So those are some of the categories that are jumping right now.
And you touched there on something that sounds like a shift. I don't know if it's a paradigm shift, but it's a shift to how partners package their offerings. It reinvent, you introduce multi-product solutions. Tell us why AWS built this and what it means for the partners.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We launched professional services like people services through the marketplace several years ago. And it grew a little bit, and then we had some early partners like Mission Cloud who saw a lot of great success there. But again, don't believe me, believe the marketplace side. If you go to marketplace today and you look at what are the top professional services there, most of them are actually ISVs offering their professional services. So like MongoDB sells Atlas, a SaaS solution, and then they sell professional services. And what we saw was a trend is like customers would buy Mongo, for example, and then, or CrowdStrike or whatever, and then quickly buy a services package for that because they needed help setting it up. It seems natural when you say it like that. And so we said, hey, what if we could put these things together? And then with the rise of agents, that sort of created a whole new level of urgency because customers, rarely sort of subscribe and use to one agent. Increasingly, it's a multi-agent workflow, right? You have like a lead orchestration agent coordinating a bunch of sub-agents. And the second design pattern there is you often have like a SaaS solution, like I mentioned Zscaler earlier, but it could be anything. Like 1Password has for their enterprise security has an MCP server, and so you have like a SaaS solution, and then you have agentic components, both their own and third party that work with it. Like another example might be one of those guys, that Canadian ISP for contact center AI. The name has escaped me, but it complements Amazon Connect. So you want to procure Connect through AWS, and then an adjacent AI solution, and then some services to help you implement it. So put it all together, and customers want to find solutions, end-to-end solutions to solve their needs. They don't just want to buy Elastic. They want to buy Elastic from Accenture with Accenture implementation services that also has some agentic component to help them do their job. So that's what we launched at reInvent. We launched visibility of AWS services like Connect within the catalog, and then both visibility and transactability for multi-component or multi-product solutions in the marketplace.
And I know you mentioned some examples already, but what other things do you see in practice? What kind of partners are using it? I've seen MSPs wrapping product.
Yeah.
I've seen consulting companies bringing their IP and some product companies as well. What other patterns do you see?
Yeah, well, I mean, the MSP ones, I mentioned Mission Cloud, and they're now a CDW company. So, and they actually have a SaaS platform for their managed services. Rackspace has something very similar with their Elastic Engineering. So they actually sell software to help manage their customers and then manage their managed services offerings. So in that case, you buy like a SaaS component, a managed services component come in one package. Where we're seeing the most though is like industry solutions, definitely, where you have a service, very often a services component and an ISP component, and then one or more vendors. Because often these complex enterprise or industry solutions certainly will require multiple products and both software and services, but multiple products from multiple vendors, and multi-product solutions allows that. The last component that we didn't touch on that's important there is often customers, how are you actually going to buy those? You're going to buy them from all of the vendors separately. That's not necessarily an efficient buying motion, and it's not how a lot of enterprise buyers buy. They buy through VARs, through resellers, through distribution partners. So multi-product solutions are often fronted by a lead seller that resells the whole solution. So you can buy all components from a single VAR or a single reseller, even though they come from multiple vendors and they're multiple types like software and services under the hood.
And maybe can you share an example of a partner who's really nailed this approach?
I mean, I think, Presidio is a good example because they're like a reseller VAR, but they're increasingly selling services. I mentioned Mission Cloud CDW. I think Accenture and Deloitte are both doing good things with partners like Elastic. MongoDB is another one that's been doing this for years. So, multiple examples across both ISVs and our services and channel partners. Okta is another one. They have professional services, and anyone who's ever set up an IDP or an identity solution in an enterprise will know that that takes help. So they sell their professional services. I mentioned Disties too, so I'd be remiss if I didn't say like Westcon, for example, with Comstore. They're a distributor, and uh, you see this a lot with networking and security companies in particular. They often sell through a reseller or distie motion. So you have CrowdStrike plus Zscaler plus Westcon Comstore professional services all packaged together, and that's a really common design pattern, but buying motion. The last are my friends at TGS. That I'll give as an example. Tech Systems. I love those guys for so many reasons. They're selling both their own IP, their own software. In their case, it's an IDP and intelligent document processing, plus their professional services and other services that actually work with Amazon Connect. I also love those guys because they are like what good looks like when it comes to the actual like operations of the partnering side, like all the lead and opportunity management. The product and the sales is one thing, but the way they work with us as a partner is totally automated. We'll have to do another podcast where we talk about like partner automation, but that's part of it too.
You're welcome to come for another episode, of course. So let's talk about how customers are actually buying. We've talked about partners, we've talked about how they're packaging their products and services. What's changed in the procurement process for customers?
Yeah, it's funny. I'd say the pendulum is like swinging back right now. And what I mean by that is I mentioned earlier that we started with self-service. And when we first started, like over a decade ago, actually over 14 years ago, right around the time when I joined AWS, it was purely self-service, but purely self-service public offers, which means it was like truly self-service in the sense there's a public price. You try if there's a free trial, you buy it, and that's kind of it. And then we introduced private offers like private pricing, custom terms where there's like a negotiation in the contract. And what's interesting is that was like a very sales-led growth motion, like where there's a rep, you call them, you negotiate the contract. And what we're seeing swing back is the combination of self-service and private offer. So that what customers, they still want self-service, but they want a discount. They don't pay list because they're an enterprise and they qualify for a 15% off because they're a big enterprise buyer and they're buying 1,000 seats for a SaaS, or they're buying X credits for Databricks or whatever. So how do we marry those two? And I think that's what we've been thinking about a lot. Like, how do we facilitate self-service research, like product research and discovery, and self-service transactions with private pricing, resell, custom terms, and all these things that, larger to enterprise buyers sort of demand.
So you see most successful partners running both strategies simultaneously, or do you see some kind of segmentation by type of customer and type of partner?
Yeah, I mean, most partners, especially bigger software providers, will tell you, "Oh, my buyers are complex. My product's complex. I can only do bespoke sales-led growth." But what we found in practice is that the most successful companies, even with historically complex enterprise solutions, embrace metering, embrace self-service, and embrace simultaneously a traditional sales-led growth approach with product-led growth. I mean, what CFO and what CRO would not want to have a strategy for new logo acquisition or targeting down market customers in SMB, in addition to sort of growing your existing enterprise customers? I mean, that's basically the playbook of every CRO and every CFO, pretty much every software company I've ever talked to, big and small. And so, yeah, you need both a self-service and ideally metered self-service. So you could do things like free trials and low cost of customer acquisition, low cost of sales, targeting SMB, grow your business in combination with sort of the heavier but lucrative sales-led growth. It's an and.
Yeah, definitely. We want customers to have lower barrier of entry and to subscribe into a partner service. Well, let's talk about self-service features that Marketplace offers.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. And like I said, it's easy to equate self-service with public offers and public pricing, but it can definitely, like most of our self-service investments have been for private offers actually. And we found that roughly 26% of all private offers actually start with a self-service motion. And what that means is like we have AI-powered discovery, we have agent mode now, and we have AI-powered search. We have, I mentioned free trials, the ability to do free trials, the ability to request a demo, request a private offer, like through self-service. And now we have this new thing called express private offers, which I'm really excited about. I mentioned earlier that like most large companies don't pay list. Well, imagine if you could get a negotiated rate, but get that automatically without having to call a rep. Like that is great for the partner because it's low cost of sales, but it's also great for you, the buyer, because you have faster access. So everyone wins. And so in most cases, like let's say you're doing a 3-year renewal and there's like a 5% annual contract value uplift, and the terms haven't changed. Like you don't need a sales negotiation for that. Like, the customer has sort of a ceiling of which they'll accept the uplift in the price in the renewal. And normally it's normal with inflation, you raise the price a little bit every three years. If it's not like a 1-year renewal, it's a 3-year renewal. If you're ticking all the boxes, and if you are who you say you are, if you're that customer, you should just get the price and be able to pay, right? So that's what Express Private Offers is. We pre-qualify the customer, and then in fact, we essentially deliver the private pricing on demand to the customer. So that's really exciting. It's new, came out late last year, and that's like, yeah, self-service and automation for private pricing, which is if you tell an old school procurement person this, kind of blows their mind. But so that we're really focused on minimizing buyers' regret through things like demos and through things like product research, AI-powered product comparisons, reviews, all this stuff, but also making it easiest to transact. And the last but not least, self-service also means self-service configuration. Like Gartner has this great study that says they estimate that 25% of all SaaS that's bought never gets used, which sounds nuts, but I'm not surprised because, they buy it and either the seats are like not accounted for or it's not set up properly. It doesn't work well. So we also have SaaS quick launch that helps set things up so that, customers get immediate value through self-service, but through configuration of what they buy. So help them find what they need to buy easily through self-service, help them procure through self-service, even if it's private pricing, and then help them set it up through self-service so they get immediate value. That's the strategy.
It sounds like you're super keen on self-service, but for what about those complex enterprise deals where you really need an AWS partner and AWS itself work together closely? What changed in how we do GTM with our partners?
Well, what's changed is there's a lot more volume with the millions of subscriptions and all. Actually, with automation, we're getting a lot more opportunities and leads coming into our systems from partners because they can automate that. And with that kind of volume comes great responsibility. We could hire every person on the planet. We'd never be able to keep up. And so we've had to introduce a lot of the core go-to-market hasn't changed. Like for the most strategic, largest deals that help our partners grow and be profitable and help AWS grow, because that helps us also in turn help our partners. Those largest deals, we want to engage in active co-sell. And so we've been working on making it more efficient for our field, our salespeople to co-sell. And we know that's important because like when we co-sell with partners, we have research from IDC, for example, that we have 45% shorter sales cycles, that 40% of partners say the marketplace provides reliable like collection and disbursements, that the renewal rates go up by 30%. So like there's a good reason to sell with marketplace and a good reason to co-sell with AWS because the deals are larger, they close faster, and yeah, it's just a win. So that's why we're so focused on essentially triaging and saying, hey, for the largest, most important deals, we will engage our people, our teams, and sort of active co-sell. For those medium-sized deals, like we'll say like $1,000 to $100,000, where it still requires custom pricing, express private offers. And for the long tail, we still have public offers. Like let's help you set up metering and put a public price. And it allows us to bifurcate inbound leads. So you do a demand gen campaign, and depending on who that customer is who arrives, we can route it to the right sort of go to market. So that's kind of what is like nothing has changed and everything has changed in the sense that like these are classic go to market motions, like public offer, sort of semi-private, private. But what has changed is we've introduced a lot of automation. So the automation itself is expressed as a solution matching engine internally. This allows us to auto recommend specific partners and their solutions into our rep CRM. So when you pop up an opportunity, it's like, oh, this is a security opportunity in the US Northeast for this like large pharma company. We auto recommend services and software partners. That's like leads as a service. And then we have agents that progress those leads through the pipeline. So you can auto qualify for incentives and funding. And, I mentioned tech systems with their automation. Like our vision is to make sales, like co-sell with us, as automated and as lightweight as possible. So you keep your cost of sales low. And then simultaneously, you could have like a product-led growth channel to have those low to no cost of sales leads and ultimately close deals go through. That's the strategy.
And can you maybe share an example of a partner who's really leveraged this automation in these co-sell capabilities?
Yeah, well, I'll go back to that TGS example. So Tech Systems, they're
Mhm.
global services. They're a premier tier partner, I think, with AWS, and they manage more than 5,500 co-sell opportunities in a really lightweight way, thanks to AI. So they use Amazon Bedrock. They use our Partner Central APIs. They've been experimenting with the Partner Central co-sell agent and giving us good feedback. And what they do with this is they actually, like, the way it works with partners is they send in leads, these partner originated opportunities, and then they say, "Hey, I intend to sell to this customer," and then our team decides based on how it's scored, whether we engage directly or whether we just qualify them for incentives to help close that deal in an automated way. And they essentially use these agents and APIs to progress their opportunity through our system so they can get auto qualified for eligible funding, for example, credits they can issue to the customer to grease the skids of that deal. And all of this is kind of automated. So they used to do like a reconciliation and basically like a triage and cleanup of all of their thousands of opportunities. It would take days. Now they can do that in under 30 minutes because of the mix of sort of AI and APIs that they're using. So that's like real value because they can essentially like progress deals through the pipeline and close them faster with all the same incentives without losing anything and get, in fact, better visibility into co-sell status than they ever did before.
And with all this many capabilities available, do you see common thread across all the successful solutions? Is this the agentic things that just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, differentiation remains like key. And so domain expertise, we have a lot of listings and a lot of partners, like, I think it's over 100,000, 150,000 partners out there and over 30,000 listings on Marketplace. Like, how do you stand out, whether you're a services partner or a software partner or an agent? And I think, that's where the specializations for the partner, like the stuff that we've been asking partners to do all this time, like case studies, being part of our programs, like our specialization programs, so you can advertise and your expertise, the training, the certifications. What has changed is getting those and leveraging for the way you leverage them for sales is becoming increasingly automated. But end of the day, customers want to work with software solutions that are fit for purpose and with experts in the field. So like, and they want to be able to find that easily and then find other components that uh, help them derive more value from that. So for example, if you're like looking for a customer service solution, you don't want just the agent. You need perhaps a contact center solution and the associated agentic or AI component and a services provider who has domain expertise. And by the way, capacity and capability in the place where they need to show up. So you don't just get the B team. And we can now automate a lot of that, a lot of those recommendations and put those things together in a multi-product solution. So I think, what that really boils down to is like domain specific, industry specific financial services, retail, manufacturing, uh, advertising, and codifying your expertise through the AWS specializations, and then partnering with the right partners, both services and software, and wrapping that up as multi-product solutions. So don't be generic. Leverage partnerships, leverage solution-based sales in the form of multi-product solutions, include agents, and introduce automation so that you can close that deal fast because your customer appreciates that too. They don't want to spend 6 months on procurement either. They want to get to work. So that's what I would say is like what I'm seeing is some of the successful characteristics of solutions.
Matt, this has been an incredible conversation. We've covered so much from explosive growth of AI agents to multi product solutions to self service features and co-sell capabilities. As we wrap up, what's the one thing you want the partners listening to this podcast to take away?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you don't already have a marketplace strategy, and if you don't already have a blended PLG, self-service, and sales-led growth strategy with us, like co-sell strategy with us, like why not? You're leaving money on the table. Like we've seen such success compounded over well over a decade now. You can move faster, you can close deals faster. Those deals will be bigger. I mean, don't believe me, believe Salesforce. Don't believe me, but believe like Drata. From startup to the world's largest enterprises, like this is how people are selling. And if you're a consulting partner, listen to this, like, guess what? Marketplaces are coming your way too. Like we're seeing this sizable shift to services, people services sold in the same motion. And there's going to be some holdouts like there was in the SaaS revolution 10 years ago. And most of those holdouts don't exist anymore. So the last thing I'll say is, don't just embrace agents, like give them a bear hug. We are seeing a sizable shift, and the partners who, it doesn't mean you have to give up what you have now, but like your SaaS solution needs complementary, not just embedded agentic capabilities, but what is your agent ecosystem of other partners that sort of work well with your solution? How are you wrapping those up in multi-product solutions? So embrace automation, embrace agents, embrace marketplace, and don't believe Matt, believe the data. Like it's really, it'll help you grow your business, and we'd love to do it with you.
Matt Yanchyshyn, Vice President of AWS Marketplace and Partner Services. Thank you so much for joining us on AWS Partners Unplugged. This has been a fantastic episode.
Igor, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me today.